Empress Velasara's voice cut through the vaulted chamber like a blade through silk. The Kalari Empire bends to no external decree. Our fleets guard the void. Our temples sanctify our bloodline. This alliance is a concession, not a surrender. The Imperial Council chamber hummed with the low vibration of suspensor fields, its obsidian walls etched with the genealogies of 1,000 sovereigns. Velasara stood at the dais' apex, her iridescent scales shimmering under the aurora lanterns, each facet a testament to her unchallenged rule. Hereditary command of the Eclipse Armada secured her throne. The Oracle Temple's sanction wove her legitimacy into the Empire's soul. Yet here, amid the ranked counselors, high admirals in fleet black robes, temple hierarchs with their neural crowns pulsing faintly, threat loomed not from invasion, but from their own calculations. High Admiral Kalor, his crest flared in agitation, inclined his elongated head. Majesty, the Terran trade bloc escalates, their freighters mass at the Veil Nebula. Refuse the treaty, and we lose the border provinces. Illyria's shipyards, Barath's crystal forges. Prestige fractures, factions rise. Velasara's tail coiled tightly beneath her robes, a private signal of restraint. She had crushed rebellions, outmaneuvered rival houses, all while upholding the ancient codes. Humans? Primitive upstarts, their vessels crewed by Kalari standards, their diplomats reeking of unchecked ambition. But the projections were irrefutable. Denial invited blockade, then opportunistic strikes from the Chiron concordance beyond. The bond proceeds, she declared, her tone a velvet command. Publicly, I affirm it. Privately, her gaze swept the chamber, pinning each dissenter. We watch, we prepare contingencies. The council murmured assent, relief threading through their subsonics. Velasara turned from the dais, her honor guard falling into flawless step. Duty demanded this farce, an arranged marriage treaty no less, binding her to a Terran envoy to symbolize unity. Avert war, they said. Preserve the Empire. She would play the part, her strength unyielding. 3 cycles later, the grand atrium thrummed with courtly anticipation. Velasara oversaw the procession from her elevated throne, the air thick with incense from temple braziers. Nobles in jeweled harnesses lined the crystalline floors, their whispers a susurrus of intrigue. The human arrived not in pomp, but precision. Captain Marcus Hale striding through the vaulted gates flanked by minimal escort, tall for his kind, unadorned save for a crisp Terran uniform, navy blue, insignia gleaming, and a sidearm holstered with casual deference. No entourage of boastful aides, just him, presented as ceremonial military liaison and guard, to be quartered in the palace household. He halted at the atrium's center, bowing low, not the subservient crouch of vassals, but a measured incline that acknowledged her without groveling. Velasara studied him through half-lidded eyes. Humans aged poorly, their frames soft by galactic norms, yet this one moved with coiled economy, eyes scanning protocols without overt curiosity. Captain Hale, she intoned, her voice amplified by the throne's resonators. The treaty binds us. You stand as liaison to my fleets, guard to my person. Swear fealty to the Kalari crown. Hale straightened, his expression neutral, voice steady through the translation field. Empress Velasara, I pledge my service to the Alliance's terms. Honor guides my blade. The court rippled with restrained judgment. Fealty from a lesser species? Velasara signaled acceptance, and Hale was led to the household wing, under eternal watch. The first fracture came in the strategy vault 2 days hence. Velasara convened her senior officers to integrate the humans' insights into border defenses, a perfunctory nod to the treaty. Maps of the Veil Nebula holographic before them, pulsing with fleet vectors and Terran trade lanes. Admiral Vossar, a veteran of the Chiron skirmishes, gestured sharply at a cluster. Your Majesty, we interdict their freighters at Node 7, Alpha. Standard blockade, pylon deployment, then tractor sweeps. Hale, seated unobtrusively at the vault's edge, leaned forward fractionally. Admiral, with respect, that node's drift rate exceeds projections by 0.3%. Current vectors risk entanglement with the nebula's flux currents. Vossar's frills quivered, offense rippling through his subharmonics. Human computations err. Our sensors calibrate to 0.27 precisely. Your primitives lack our quantum arrays. Velasara watched, her prior certainty. A human's place is novelty, not peer, stirring unease. Hale didn't argue. He tapped his personal slate, projecting a supplemental overlay. It synced seamlessly with the vault's holofield, revealing micro-adjustments from real-time Terran probe data. The drift aligned. 0.31%. Confirmed. Vossar stiffened, mandibles clicking. An anomaly in our feed. Adjust to beta node, Hale said mildly. Safer intercept. Minimal exposure. The Admiral conceded with a curt nod, reprogramming the sim. Velisara's gaze lingered on Hale. Precision, unbidden, a correction that undermined without humiliating. Had she misjudged their race's grasp of voidsong mathematics? Humans, with their blunt tools, threading errors her elite missed? She dismissed the session, but the seed took root. This one saw patterns where Kailari wrote sufficed. The oath ceremony followed in the Oracle Sanctum, a rite sealing the treaty before temple witnesses. Velvet-robed hierarchs chanted, neural crowns sinking to invoke ancestral sanction. Velisara stood at the altar, Hale opposite, their hands to join over the binding crystal. A symbolic union, political chains veiled as matrimony. Nerves frayed the air. Noble factions lurked in the shadows. House Thalor preeminent among detractors. Whispers of diluted bloodline had already poisoned lesser halls, as the hierarch intoned the vow's climax, by fleet and temple, bind eternal. A junior acolyte fumbled the crystal's levitation field. It wobbled, dipping toward the altar's edge, threatening to shatter on consecrated stone. Scandal, an ill-omened fracture before the court. Velisara tensed, protocol demanding intervention by her alone, yet to move would disrupt the chance rhythm, inviting murmurs of omen failure. Hale acted. His hand flickered out, not snatching, but guiding, a subtle palm beneath the crystal, steadying its field without contact. The acolyte corrected seamlessly, crystal rising pristine. No pause, no spectacle. The chant flowed unbroken. The hierarchs blinked, subsonics betraying flicker shock. Velisara noted it all. Hale's retreat to stance, face impassive, as if containing chaos were breath. Reliability, incarnate, not brute force but finesse. Reading the breach's subtext, averting scandal with minimal intrusion. A practical asset, this human, her guard perhaps more. Post-rite in the sanctum's withdrawing chamber, nobles clustered. Lord Thalor, crest aggressively flared, approached under guise of felicitation. Majesty, this pairing invites derision. The provinces mock a sovereign yoked to mammalian whims. Exile him, claim ritual incompatibility. Others echoed, prestige erodes. Eclipse Armada chafes at alien council. Velisara's tail lashed once, hidden by robes. Yield the throne? Never. But exile now screamed weakness. Treaty's first fracture. Hale had proven utility. Corrected Vossar, salvaged the oath. Dismiss him, and what subtleties escaped her notice? No, she stated, voice steel-clad. He remains under palace scrutiny. Triple the vetting, shadow his steps, probe his histories. Discreetly. If frailty shows, he departs. Until then, the treaty stands. Thaler bowed, eyes gleaming with veiled calculation, but retreated. Velisara turned to the viewport, Veil Nebula swirling beyond, duty compelled proximity. Capability hinted at more. An empress would not yield her throne, but she would wield this unwanted treaty's edge. In the household wing that night, Hale unpacked methodically, unaware of the eyes. Drones, informants, tracking him. A single data crystal from his slate pinged Terra. Routine status. He worked without fatigue, cross-referencing Kailari protocols against human archives, adapting seamlessly. Velisara's private feed captured it, multitasking vectors, patterns linking nebula drifts to ancient Terran naval lore. Extraordinary, for what she had deemed ordinary. Her certainty cracked further. Perhaps humans were not lesser. And in that fracture, alliance stirred towards something unbidden. Equality's shadow. Lord Thalor's faction did not sleep. Envoys slipped into shadowed alcoves, plotting counters. But Velisara's command held. Watch, vet, endure. The Empire demanded no less. As Hale settled into quarters, a palace drone hummed past, its scan yielding only diligence. Velisara, reviewing feeds in her solar, allowed a rare private coil of her tail in approval. Practical, reliable. For now, asset enough. The nebula waited their first joint maneuver. Their truths would sharpen. Velisara's voice rang through the vaulted Hall of Oaths, each syllable a blade tempered in ritual fire. By the eternal accord, the Alliance binds our thrones in duty alone. Private sanctums remain inviolate, as protocol decrees since the first schism. The assembled court, cloaked hierarchs, fleet admirals, and whispering clerks murmur dissent, their iridescent scales flickering under the crystal domes. She felt the weight of their gazes, probing for fracture, but her posture held unyielding, crown gems catching the light like distant stars. Captain Marcus Hale stood at the ritual's edge, his human frame rigid in the borrowed Kalari guard sash, hands clasped behind his back. From Velisera's vantage on the dais, he appeared almost statue still, his dark eyes scanning the hall with a discretion that bordered on insolence. The protocol drones hummed approval as they etched the vows into luminous stone. Separation of quarters enforced by automated wards, intimacy barred under pain of temple sanction, duty over desire, the ancient law intoned. She wondered fleetingly if the human chafed at it. His face betrayed nothing. As the drones withdrew, Hale fell into step beside her honor guard for the procession to the outer galleries. Velisera dismissed the throng with a raised talon, her mind already turning to the fleet reports from the nebula. Truth sharpened there indeed, but here, in the palace's gilded veins, sharper blades awaited. Hale moved through his ceremonial rounds with mechanical precision, shadowing the dawn patrol along the western ramparts, reciting the Alliance oaths at each sensor pylon, his voice a low Terran rumble translated flawlessly by his color implant. Yet beneath the rote, his gaze dissected the defenses. Perimeter arrays gleamed flawless, gravitic fields, plasma webs, drone swarms calibrated to the micrometer. Kalari engineering at its zenith, he noted silently, efficient as a scalpel. But as he paused at the eastern overlook, pretending to adjust his sash, anomaly flickered in his peripheral scan. A blind spot in the sensor lattice where the outer nursery groves met the sheer cliff face. No coverage. Odd, for a palace ringed by threats. He committed the coordinates to memory, multitasking the patrol chant without missing a beat, his breath steady despite the thin high-altitude air that would have winded lesser envoys. Velisera observed from her shadowed alcove, ostensibly reviewing dispatches. The human's pace never faltered, yet she caught the subtle pivot of his head. The micro pause at the overlook. Competence masked as compliance. She filed it away, a quiet approval stirring amid her calculations. The council's chamber erupted as Grand Clerk Thaler unrolled the hollow scroll, its archaic glyphs pulsing crimson. The interdiction of Varus Edict 37 Alpha revived. No union across the veil of species shall stain the imperial line. The human envoy's proximity mocks our blood purity. Thaler's frills quivered with zeal, his legalist faction nodding like synchronized waves. Temple purists, succession hawks, all scenting weakness in the alliance. Pragmatists countered swiftly. Admiral Crisara's voice cut through, her battle scars gleaming. Revival reeks of sabotage. External fleets probe our borders. We need Terran ingenuity, not dusty bands. The chamber split, voices layering in fractal discord, factions coalescing like storm clouds. Velisera presided from the apex throne, her expression a mask of imperial calm, though inwardly, the schism gnawed, one crack, and the empire fractured. She silenced them with a single gesture, the air thickening under her command aura. A legal review commences at once. Precedents will be weighed. As the clerks scattered, she summoned her private aide, Lyra, in the antechamber's hush. Search the deep archives, Velisera murmured, voice dropping to velvet steel. Exceptional alliances, wartime pacts, prophetic bonds. Find the clause that bends without breaking. Lyra's eyes widened fractionally. Insubordination to protocol? But she bowed, vanishing into the data vaults. Velisera exhaled, the formality of her robe suddenly constricting. Duty demanded this human at her side. Now it demanded more. The public exercise unfolded in the grand stables under a haze of afternoon light. Courtiers gathered on tiered balconies. A ceremonial Rylak, massive six-legged beast of the imperial mounts, bolted in mock panic, its harness snapping as simulated flares mimicked battle stress. Protocol demanded restraint without lethal force. Failure meant disgrace. Hale, stationed as guard liaison, stepped forward without flourish, his movements fluid amid the chaos. The Rylak thundered past, horns gouging stone, courtiers gasping. Velisera washed from the royal dais, talon tapping her armrest. Hale dodged a sweeping limb, then vaulted onto a low beam, impossible leverage for his compact frame, dropping onto the beast's flank. No whip, No shout. He gripped the frilled neck with gloved hands, leaning into the rhythm of its gait, murmuring low through the translator in a cadence that synced with its panicked bellows, multitasking breath control, pressure points, and vocal harmonics. Terran fieldcraft, adapted on the fly. The Rylax slowed, shuddered, then knelt, foam-flecked but unharmed. Silence gripped the balconies, broken by scattered frill flutters of approval. Velicera rose, her voice carrying measured praise. The envoy upholds decorum and mastery. The alliance serves. Heir dismounted, bowing crisply, sweat beading his brow but posture unbroken. Their eyes met briefly. His humble nod, her subtle incline. A thread of personal regard wove through the propriety, unbidden. Dawn brought the pamphlets, scattered like venomous petals across the palace forecourt. Empress bows to Apekin. Weakness invites ruin. Anonymous script, but the hand screamed factional work, legalists, or worse, shadow cabals eyeing her throne. Velicera crushed one underfoot, fury coiling beneath her regal poise. Rumors festered. The alliance painted her as diminished. She convened her inner circle in the strategy vault. Holograms flickering invasion vectors from the nebula fringes tightened the public calendar, no gaps for whispers. Captain Hale assumes visible guard rotation, my shadow in every procession, every audience. Admirals exchanged glances, elevating the human, but none dissented. Chrysara's frills twitched approval, pragmatism prevailed. Hale received the orders via drone missives as he audited a secondary defense node, confirming the sensor gap's persistence. No breach yet, but vulnerability begged exploitation. He nodded to the drone, falling into the new role without query. Velicera watched him take post outside her solar, his stance vigilant yet unobtrusive. Ceremony masked his quiet audits. The pamphlets forced his prominence. But as Lyra slipped her encrypted slate later that eve, precedent located, clause of the twin flames, permitting bonds forged in mutual peril. Velicera's gaze lingered on the human silhouette beyond the wards. The legal clause gleamed like a political dagger, half-sheathed, half-bared. Thalor's faction would strike first. Hale's unseen audits hinted at deeper threats. In the nebula's shadow, truths sharpened indeed, and proximity cracked the protocols ever so slightly. Velicera's voice cut through the chamber's resonant hum like a command blade. Convene the border delegates at the Vale Nexus. We shall stage a joint demonstration, fleet maneuvers synchronized with ground assault simulations. Let them witness the Alliance's steel, not merely its parchment. Her advisors bowed in unison, iridescent scales flickering under the throne room's auroral lights. But Thalor lingered, his crest flared in subtle defiance. Empress, the humans lack proven void tactics. This risks nothing that competence cannot mend, she interjected, her gaze unyielding. Marcus Hale stood at the chamber's edge, posture impeccable in his Terran uniform, a silent shadow amid the Kalari splendor. She had noted his quiet consultations with the logistics aides earlier, but now his eyes met hers briefly, assessing, not presumptuous. Duty bound them. She would test if it forged more. The Vale Nexus thrummed with anticipation. 2 cycles later, a vast orbital platform orbiting the contested border world of Elandris. Border delegates from fractious clans crowded the observation decks, their whispers a susurrus of doubt. Kalari dreadnoughts arrayed in precise phalanxes beyond the viewports, while below, armored cohorts drilled in simulated urban breaches. Hale's human contingent, lean, unadorned troops, integrated seamlessly into the ground teams, their movements efficient, unshowy. Velicera watched from the command dais, her primary advisor, Lyrith, at her side. The humans adapt quickly to our grav suits, he murmured, mandibles clicking approval. Yet logistics remain the true test. As if summoned, alarms pierced the air. Comm satellite cascade failure barked a technician. Nebula interference amplified. Supply convoys blind, en route from the outer depots. They'll fragment into the debris fields without reroute. Panic rippled through the delegates. A logistical snarl here could doom the demonstration, painting the alliance as frail before the clans. Thalor's faction would feast on that. Velicera's crest tightened. Divert auxiliary relays. Compensate. Relays compromised, Sovereign. Projections show 30% convoy loss. Hale stepped forward unbidden, his voice calm amid the clamor. Empress, permit me. He activated a holotable, fingers dancing across its interface with fluid multitasking. pulling nebula scans, convoy manifests, and Elandris topography simultaneously. Velisera observed, intrigued despite herself. Kalari minds excelled at linear precision, but this human juggled threads like a nebula weaver. Pattern here, Hale continued, tracing vectors. Nebula's interference pulses rhythmically, every 4.7 minutes. The slot convoys through the lulls, using the planet's moon as a slingshot relay. Improvise microbursts from the Dreadnought's auxiliary arrays. No new tech needed. Wirath's eyes widened, scales paling. That demands split-second synchronization across disparate systems. Humans endure such focus? Hale merely nodded, already patching commands. We've routed worse through asteroid storms. Standard procedure. The holotable bloomed with rerouted paths, elegant in their audacity. Convoys veered, slingshotting flawlessly, microbursts piercing the interference. Delegates gasped as feeds confirmed. 0 losses. Cheers erupted from the ground teams below, human and Kalari alike slapping armored shoulders in shared triumph. Velisara allowed a measured smile. Improvisation as proof. Well executed, Captain Hale. The delegates are reassured. Thaler approached as the chamber cleared, his delegation trailing like specters. Impressive parlor trick, Sovereign. Yet succession demands more than supply runs. We propose Lord Calith as consort, pure Kalari blood, untainted by alien novelty, bind the conservative houses, secure the throne against novelties. The council chamber ignited next dawn, nobles arrayed in tiered balconies, their crests broadcasting allegiances. Velisara ascended the throne dais, Hale at her flank per protocol. Thalor's voice boomed. The ancient law permits alternatives. Calith commands 3 fleets, sires heirs without question. This human? A diplomatic bauble. Debates swirled, succession clauses dissected, alliances weighed against prestige. Velisara parried with regal poise. The treaty binds us to Hale's line until proven void. Novelty has just proven its edge. Yet doubt lingered in the air, thick as nebula fog. In her private sanctum that eve, Velisara summoned her shadow operative Vespera. Audit the human's career records, discreetly, and surveil his contacts. Terran channels, Kalari intermediaries. I will know the blade I wield. Vespera bowed low, her form blending into the gloom. As commanded, Empress. Reports trickled in over the next cycle, each more revelatory. Hale's public dossier, unremarkable envoy. But classified strata peeled back like molting scales. Black Ops Command and fringe wars, orchestrating diversions that turned sieges. Endurance logs. Shifts exceeding Kalari limits without falter. Multitask simulations. Pattern recognition linking stellar cartography to PSYOPs. Improvising victories from scraps. One file detailed a nebula blockade breach. Hale alone rerouted an entire evacuation fleet under fire, bonding his crew across species lines with quiet resolve. Velisara traced the hollows, reassessing. Not a bauble, a strategist, forged in shadows. Trained breath rivaled her admirals, yet he wore it humbly. Calith commanded fleets. Hale reshaped them unseen. Her protocols cracked faintly, duty sharpening into alliance. Then, catastrophe struck mid-preparations for the post-demonstration feast. A maintenance drone whirred into the ceremonial wing only to detonate in sparks, revealing a sabotaged explosive nestled in the structural struts. Shrapnel scars marred the vaulted arches. Public optics shattered if word spread. "Lock down!" Velisara commanded, striding into the fray as guards swarmed. Alarms wailed, sealing bulkheads. Delegates milled in confusion beyond the cordon. Thalor's hand, or deeper shadows. She turned to Hale, already scanning schematics on his wristpad. "Captain, oversee security measures. Root the threat. Now." His nod was immediate, no hesitation. Understood. Teams to sweep vents and access nodes. I'll cross-reference drone logs with personnel manifests. Find the insertion point. As he directed hybrids of human ingenuity and Kalari precision, deploying sensor drones in novel patterns while her guards held perimeters, Velisara watched his calm fracture the panic. Humans endured chaos as breath. He multitasked sweeps, delegate reassurances, and threat modeling without strain. A Kalari lieutenant faltered under the load. Hale steadied him with a quiet word, forging instant pack loyalty. Vespera's urgent whisper reached her. explosive traces to Thalor's estate armory, and Hale's audits flagged the same. Preemptive. Belisara's crest flared triumph, proof layered upon proof. As Hale neutralized a secondary device in the sublevels, improvising a containment field from Feast Decker cabling, the lockdown lifted to relieved murmurs. Delegates emerged wide-eyed, whispering of the humans' vigilance. In the quiet aftermath, atop the dais as stars wheeled, Belisara met Hale's gaze. Your skills run deeper than manifests suggest. He inclined his head, humble. Just what the situation demanded, Empress. We've all got our ways. Protocols cracked further, not broken but flexible. Thalor's dagger hovered, but Hale's hidden edge gleamed brighter. In the nebulous shadow, truth sharpened, and a secret past surfaced, binding duty ever tighter. Belisara's gaze sharpened as Thalor's blades sliced through the air, a whisper of poisoned steel aimed not at her but at the cluster of attendants shielding her dais. The first struck true. A young temple acolyte crumpled with a gasp, iridescent blood blooming across her robes, while screams erupted from the reception hall, crystal goblets shattering under fleeing feet. Nobles surged back, their scaled hides flushing with alarm, but Thalor pressed on, his second assailant companion lunging from the shadowed alcoves with vibro daggers humming. Marcus Hale moved like liquid shadow. From his position at the dais's flank, he pivoted without flourish, one arm snaking out to clamp the second assailant's wrist in a vise that twisted just enough to redirect the blade into the marble floor. Sparks flew. The attacker snarled, mandibles clicking in fury, but Hale's free hand drove a precise elbow into the joint of its primary limb, buckling it without a killing blow. Thalor whirled toward him then, dagger arcing high. Yet Hale sidestepped fluidly, his body a seamless economy of motion, catching the assassin's forearm mid-thrust, leveraging the momentum to hurl him into a pillar. Bone cracked against stone. Thalor slumped, dazed but alive, as Hale pinned him with a knee and stripped the weapon away, all in the span of heartbeats. The hall froze, a tableau of glittering chandeliers and stunned faces. Belisara rose from her throne, her crest frills erecting in controlled outrage, the weight of every eye upon her. Wounded attendants moaned, their kin rushing forward, but the conservative bloc, led by Lord Kalis, his obsidian scales gleaming with opportunistic fervor, seized the chaos first. My Empress, Kalis bellowed, striding forward with a cadre of allies, their robes swirling like storm clouds. This outrage stains your court. The human's presence invites such barbarity. Exile him at once, lest the gods deem our alliance profane. And behold, Prince Vorak stands ready, untainted by off-world taint, to claim the consort's mantle as ancient law demands. Murmurs rippled through the factions, the progressives clustering near the outer rings, while Kalis's traditionalists formed a bristling phalanx. Vorak, tall and imperious with gold-flecked hide, inclined his head modestly, but his eyes burned with ambition. The court fractured visibly, all alliances shifting like fault lines, whispers of betrayal threading the air. Belisara's voice cut through, resonant and unyielding, her posture a bastion amid the storm. Lord Kalis, your zeal serves the Empire, yet haste blinds you. Captain Hale has this night proven his oath with blood unspilled where death might have reigned. I affirm him here, publicly, as my appointed consort under the Treaty of Stars. No exile. No rival claim supersedes sacred pact. She gestured sharply to her guards. Seize the assailants. Launch a formal inquiry. Trace their backers to the roots, be they noble house or shadowed cult. The Empire endures through truth, not tantrums. Kalis recoiled as if slapped, his frills flattening, but Vorak's faction muttered defiance, the split now a chasm. Guards hauled Thalor and his cohort away, their struggles futile against iridium cuffs. Belisara's gaze, however, lingered on Hale. He had risen smoothly, positioning himself not before her throne but along the imperial route, the elevated causeway from dais to antechamber, where escape or further assault might funnel. His stance was casual, almost deferential, yet it blocked the path with deceptive solidity. Shoulders squared, eyes scanning the hall's periphery, one hand resting near his concealed holster. No boast, no flourish, just quiet vigilance, as if shielding her were as natural as breath. She recalibrated then, in the privacy of her thoughts. This human, Marcus Hale, was no mere envoy or ceremonial guard. His intervention had been surgical, restrained force preserving lives, even assailants, in a court where execution was reflex. Loyalty, yes, but laced with tactical brilliance. He'd read the angles, anticipated the flow, multitasked containment amid pandemonium. Her own guards, elite as they were, would have felled foes outright. Hale had improvised restraint, turning attackers into witnesses. What drove such precision? Not arrogance. His expression held only steady focus, humble in its competence. The treaty compelled his presence, yet duty alone did not forge this shield. Intrigue deepened. Protocols flexed further. The reception dissolved into guarded murmurs, nobles dispersing under her watchful eye. Hale remained at the route's midpoint until the last attendant cleared, then fell in step beside her as she descended the dais toward private chambers. "Your actions were measured, Captain," she said softly, her voice a regal murmur amid the echoing hall. "The court sees valor. I see strategy. Speak plainly. Did you anticipate this?" He met her gaze evenly, his human features unreadable save for a faint tension at his jaw. "Instinct, Empress. Crowds like this carry undercurrents. I read the shifts." Phaler's glance to the alcove, the second man's grip too eager. Better to end it clean than let it spread. No elaboration, no claim to genius. Just fact, delivered with the patience of one who had danced such dances before. She nodded, a subtle acknowledgement, as they passed into the antechamber's vaulted hush. But sanctuary proved fleeting. A herald burst through the far archway, his scales pallid with urgency. "Empress!" Envoy from the Vorith Concord, demands audience immediate. They renounce no borders but decry your alliance as casus belli provocation. Velisera's crest flared briefly, then settled. The Vorath, eternal rivals, their empire a hive of expansionist fleets, had long-eyed Kalari fringes. This provocative envoy reeked of ploy, test her resolve post-attack, force renouncement before factions solidified against her. "Admit them," she commanded, striding to the strategy dais where holographic star maps flickered to life. "And summon the Shadow Council." Discreetly. Hale remained at her side unbidden, his presence now a fixture she did not dismiss. As the Vorath envoy entered, a hulking figure with chitinous plating and multifaceted eyes, flanked by drone guards, she authorized the contingencies with crisp gestures. "Deploy the nebula veils to our border flanks. Silent. Untraceable. Arm the tempo relays for surge capacity. If they probe, we answer in kind but veiled." The envoy's mandibles clacked in mechanical basic. "Empress Velisara, the Concord views your human pact as existential threat. Renounce it, or face blockade. Your worlds teeter." She regarded him coolly, Hale a silent sentinel at her elbow. "The Concord mistakes caution for weakness. Our alliance stands, enriched by it. Return with terms of peace, or prepare for resolve." The envoy's facets swirled with data feeds, analyzing her defiance, then withdrew with stiff-legged retreat. Alone again, Velisara turned to Hale, her voice lowering. "They press because the court fractures. Your steadiness bolsters me, yet invites peril. Will you stand as consort in truth, beyond ceremony?" His eyes held hers, steady as the stars beyond. "If duty calls it, Empress, but true partnership builds on shared sight. What do you need from me now?" She paused, weighing the shift. Protocols cracked, not shattered, but yielding to necessity. His competence was no fluke. It wove endurance into every moment, adapting to her court's lethal ballet without fatigue or fanfare. The noble's demands faded against this quiet alliance, her estimation sharpening, loyalty tactical, profound. Yet the inquiry loomed, backers hidden, and Vorath fleets stirred. In shielding her route, he had claimed more than position. He had earned her regard. As aides filtered in with inquiry reports, Velisara gestured him closer to the holomap. "Your patterns intrigue, Captain. Help me connect these threads. Taylor's house ties to Kalis," Vorath whispers in the vents. "Together, we unravel it." He leaned in, fingers tracing nebulae shadows with innate fluency. "Here, faint from the east, real thrust veiled, matches their playbook. Collaborative, unassuming." Her frills eased in rare accord. The failed strike had tested not just blades but thrones, revealing fractures, forging bonds. Loyalty's litmus burned bright, her authority reaffirmed in defiance's fire. Yet deeper currents swirled, a human's hidden depths binding fates ever tighter. Empress Velisara's voice cut through the vaulted chamber like a blade through silk. "The tribunal will convene. Let the ancient edict speak, or let silence condemn the challengers. Her iridescent scales gleamed under the tribunal's hovering lumens, each one a captured star from the Empire's founding wars. As the assembled high justices, 7 Kailari lords in robes of woven void steel, took their curved thrones, hushed feeds from neighboring powers flickered on peripheral holos, the serpentine envoys of the Vorak Concord, the crystalline observers from the Lyreth Vale, all watching for the fracture that could unmake her alliance with this human. Marcus Hale stood at her flank, his posture unyielding in the borrowed Kailari liaison armor, its seams straining against his broader frame. He met no gaze directly, eyes scanning the chamber's data veils instead, where treaty clauses scrolled in interlocking glyphs. Velisera felt the weight of eyes upon him. Dismissive at best, predatory at worst. The lead justice, Lord Calith, unrolled a neural scroll with deliberate slowness, his frilled crest flaring in feigned neutrality. Empress, the petition from House Vernar questions the alliance's legality under Edict 47. No off-world bond may bind the throne without unanimous noble assent. The human envoy's presence risks succession purity. She leaned forward, her tail coiling with restrained force against the throne's base. Edict 47 yields to Edict 12 in times of existential threat as ratified post the Vale incursion. The treaty secures our flanks. Challenge it at peril to the realm. Murmurs rippled, crests flickering in agitation, but Hale shifted subtly beside her, a human tick, she noted, his fingers twitching as if tracing invisible lines. He leaned in, voice low for her auditory implant alone. Your Majesty, the supply manifests from the core worlds. They're not just delayed, patterns match a deliberate cascade failure. Her gaze flicked to him, sharp as a plasma edge. Not now. But his eyes held steady, no plea, just fact. The tribunal droned on, justices parsing subclauses, while Vernar's proxy, a sleek merchant noble named Sirath, projected ledgers of economic peril from the human pact. Velisera's mind raced through contingencies, the chamber's incense-heavy air thickening with tension. Hale's hand brushed a concealed slate beneath his vambrace, feeding her a private stream, corrupted manifests decoded in real time, his human script overlaying Kailari runes. Lines converged, not random decay, but a web tracing to Vrenar vaults, siphoning munitions and fuel to black markets. A conspiracy to starve the treaty's logistics, crippling her fleets before ink dried. Calith's voice peaked. The evidence mounts against. Enough. Velisera rose, her presence silencing the hall like a gravity well. Assets of House Vrenar are frozen by imperial decree, effective this cycle. Purge the compromised networks. Isolate every node from the core depots to the rim outposts. Gasps crested like waves, Sirath's scales blanched to ash gray, his frills collapsing in shock. Backlash would howl. Merchants would rally proxies, flood the lower houses with grievances, but necessity trumped noise. Hale's decode had handed her the blade. She wielded it without hesitation. As the tribunal dissolved into procedural chaos, Velisera swept from the dais, Hale matching her stride through labyrinthine corridors pulsing with guard drones. Her household guards flanked them, crests low in deference. Captain Hale, she said, voice pitched for privacy amid the echo. Your insight pierces what my analyst circled for days. How? He shrugged, a human gesture of nonchalance that somehow eased the knot in her chest. Patterns, ma'am. Supply chains are like battlefield logistics. I've juggled worse and dustier ops. Took cross-referencing your glyph variances with Terran error codes. Nothing fancy. No boast, just workmanlike truth. She glimpsed it then, his mind weaving disparate threads, alien syntax, economic flows, conspiracy vectors, while the tribunal raged. Kailari savants labored in teams for such feats. He dismantled it solo, mid-hearing without fatigue's flicker. In her private sanctum, walls of living crystal shifting to seal them in. A courier drone hummed in, bearing a sealed dossier, Vrenar stamped, leaked to the open nets. Velisera activated it, holos blooming, accusations against Hale, mercenary records from Terran shadows, kill tallies on fringe worlds, whispers of Black Ops strings pulling the treaty like a puppet. Her crest flared involuntarily, doubt coiling cold. Political survival demanded distance, one false consort, and factions would devour her throne. Hale watched her scan it, expression neutral. Fabrications mostly. Real ops redacted, gaps filled with Vrenar forgeries. See the timestamp anomalies? Cross-check with your fleet logs. I'll show you. She thrust the hollow toward him. Prove it, Captain, or this alliance dies here. Her tone cracked formality's edge, raw command laced with the vulnerability of reliance. He didn't flinch, pulling his slate to overlay diagnostics. Minutes stretched. His fingers danced across interfaces, human multitasking evident, decoding timestamps while murmuring cross-references to her logistics purge. Even noting patrol vectors allowed for her review. Inconsistencies piled, forged neural imprints mismatched Kalari scanners, alibis aligning with her own records from the failed strike. It's a rush job, he said finally, meeting her gaze. They bet on outrage blinding scrutiny, but scrutiny's my baseline. Humble delivery, yet the weight landed. He'd unraveled their lie as effortlessly as the manifests. Velisara's tail uncurled, decision crystallizing. Trust was no sentiment, it was survival's calculus, and his ledger balanced flawless. She summoned her household seneschal via Neuralink. Shield Captain Heir from all prosecutions. Frenar claims hold no water. Elevate him. Joint command of Rim patrols effective immediately. Integrate his strategies with ours. The seneschal's crest bobbed in the hollow. As you decree, Empress. The nobles will chafe. Let them. Results silence dissent. She turned to Heir. Propriety thinning to Alliance's core. You've earned this, Marcus. Not as envoy, but asset. Led the patrols, bind our flanks as you bound those ledgers. His nod was crisp, respect mirroring hers. Honored, Your Majesty. We'll make it stick. No swagger, just quiet resolve. A human trait, enduring without fanfare, turning crisis to foundation. Alarms pierced the sanctum then. Crimson pulses from the eastern flank feeds. Belisara's console ignited. Allied armada signatures. Vorak cruisers meshed with Lyrath drones. Mobilizing in violation of the Veil Truce. Coordinated invasion, time to exploit tribunal fractures. Her blood thrummed. Wartime protocols flooding neural links. Capital to full footing. Mobilize the 3rd and 7th fleets. Captain Heir, your patrols deploy at Vanguard. Show them the Alliance's teeth. He was already interfacing, pulling manifests for resupply. Flawless multitasking amid the storm. Vectors plotted, ma'am. We'll hold the line. Guards surged in, crests high with purpose, as she strode to command overlooking the sprawl of spires now bristling with lance arrays. Neighboring powers had gambled on her division. Heir's unraveling of sabotage proved the treaty's sinew. Law and loyalty tested, necessity forged unbreakable. In the rising clamor, Velisara felt the shift, not just thrones secured, but a partnership tempered true. Fractures sealed, deeper currents now allies in the tide. The Empire would endure, remade by this human's unassuming steel. Explosive alarms shattered the fragile calm of the throne chamber as holographic displays flared crimson, projecting the breach. Coalition dreadnoughts punching through the eastern void shields, their boarding claws lancing toward the palace spires. Velisara surged to her feet, her iridescent scales rippling with controlled fury, while cries erupted from the clustered counselors. Lord Kalis clutching his console, the imperial heir, young Lyrath, shrinking behind the dais with wide, luminous eyes. The eastern sectors are lost. A trembling aide gasped. Traitor factions within the guard have opened the sublevels. Assault teams inbound, targeting the heir and the High Temple sanctum. Velisara's mandibles clicked sharply, her voice a blade of imperial command cutting through the panic. Seal the heir's vault, divert all palace legions to the grand atrium. Captain Heir. She turned, locking her multifaceted gaze on the human who had risen beside her, his posture unyielding amid the chaos. Marcus Heir's dark eyes scanned the projections with predatory focus, already murmuring into his wristcom, coordinating unseen reserves. Heir did not flinch. Empress layered defenses. Primary line at the outer bulwarks with automated turrets synced to fleet overwatch. Secondary choke points in the sublevels. Your engineers can rig gravitic pulses there. I'll take a strike team through the service ducts to flank their command vanguard. His words wove strategy without pause, multitasking feeds from 3 data streams, palace schematics, invading troop vectors, and real-time chatter from compromised comms. Velisara noted it, the effortless juggle humans called routine, while her aides fumbled single threads. She nodded once, authority unbroken. Execute. Lord Kalis, signal the fleet admirals, hold the line until Heir disrupts their nexus. As counselors scattered, Heir was already moving, barking orders to a mixed squad of Kalari guards and his own Terran auxiliaries. Velisara watched him vanish into the access hatch, his form adapting seamlessly, calibrating a borrowed Kalari pulse rifle mid-stride, linking it to his neural implant while plotting micro-routes on his vambrace. No fatigue in his stride, no hesitation, endurance her species rationed like sacred ether. The palace shuddered under the first assault waves. Distant concussive blasts echoed as invaders, hulking Vorath berserkers allied with scheming Thalari infiltrators, breached the atrium. Velisara retreated to the tactical nexus, Lirith at her side, her mind a storm of calculations. Noble houses teetering toward revolt if the Heir fell, the Empire's ancient law demanding a pure-blood successor. Yet Heir's plan crystallized in her thoughts, his pattern recognition linking palace vents to the invaders' over-reliance on brute vectors, a blind spot her rigid doctrines had overlooked. Heir's counter-operation unfolded with surgical precision. From the service ducts his team multitasked, Kalari snipers pinning advanced squads while he hacked the Coalition's command net, sowing false pings that drew reserves into kill zones. Patterns theirs, he muttered over comms, voice steady as he improvised. Wiring a scavenged power cell into a makeshift EMP burst, creativity turning scrap into disruption. The invaders' nexus faltered, their lead assault fragmented, palace approaches secured in under an hour. Velisara's guards reported back, awe threading their voices. The human. He anticipated their feints before our augurs confirmed. In the nexus, as the tide turned, Velisara faced the holographic council, fractured by distance, flickering from fleet bridges and bunkers. Heir's face patched in, sweat-streaked but resolute, relaying the disruption. Coalition command in disarray, their flagship isolated, recognition bloomed in her core, not subservience, but equality. This human bore the burden as she did, judgment unclouded by courtly veils. Counselors, she declared, her tone regal yet laced with the crack of raw conviction. The alliance with Terra is no longer compelled by treaty. I commit it permanently, binding our bloodlines as ancient law permits. Captain Heir stands as my equal. Revolt or not, the Empire demands it. Gasps rippled through the feeds. Lord Cayley's frills quivered in shock. Empress, the nobles will kneel or shatter, she cut in, strength unyielding. Heir's eyes met hers across the link, a flicker of shared resolve passing unspoken. Personal connection piercing formality. He nodded, humble as ever, unaware his feats reshape dynasties. With the palace held, they pivoted to the kill stroke. Velisara orchestrated from the throne nexus, her fleet admirals vectoring capital ships in an enveloping spiral. Classic Kalari precision, leveraging their etheric drives for unmatched maneuvers. Hail! Ground vector confirmed? Affirmative, he replied, now planet-side amid the eastern rubble, coordinating with her drop troops. His voice layered tactics. Fleet pins their flanks. We'll infiltrate the command barge via ventral exhausts. Your grav pulses seal escape. My team takes the bridge. Multitasking incarnate, he directed fire teams, analyzed enemy evasion patterns, and bonded his squad with quick gestures, a reassuring clasp to a faltering Kalari sergeant's shoulder, forging pack loyalty across chitin and flesh. Velisara's fleets danced through void fire, their cultural mastery of spatial folds boxing the invaders. Heir's incursion pierced the barge's heart. Dodging plasma storms, he improvised breaching charges from enemy munitions, pattern recognition spotting overlooked maintenance rift. Resilience gleamed as wounds accumulated, yet he pressed, optimism fueling his squad. We've got this. Their rote assaults can't match our mix. A final synchronized pulse. Kalari ether lances crippled engines. Heir's blade ended the Coalition warlord mid-transmission. Victory rippled outward. Coalition remnants scattered. The campaign crushed in a day. Cheers erupted across Imperial channels as Heir's team extracted, his endurance carrying him through debriefs without pause. Humility intact, crediting teamwork, nothing more. In the Grand Throne Hall, aglow with restoration fields, the High Council convened under Velisara's gaze. Banners of conquered foes draped the arches. Lirath stood tall beside her, the Heir's scales mirroring her poise. Heir entered, uniform torn but stance erect, aliens parting with newfound deference, whispers of the unyielding one tracing his path. By temple sanction and fleet decree, Velisara proclaimed, her voice carrying the weight of epochs. The Union is recognized. Captain Marcus Heir, you are consort imperial. equal in counsel. Guardian of the line. She drew Lirath forward, the child's hand clasping Hail's. Our offspring bridges dynasties. Human steel to Kalari fire. The Empire endures through this. Counselors bowed, even Kalis yielding with grudging respect. Hail inclined his head, voice low for her alone. Duty honored, Empress. Partnership forged. No arrogance, mere competence, humble as Terran soil. Velisera turned to the assembly, restructuring with deliberate grace. Governance evolves. Hail shares high command, co-guardian of the air and fleets. Imperial prerogative remains mine, yet burdens divide, as stars share the void. Murmurs of approval swelled. Aliens researched him openly now, data pads humming with queries on human anomalies, endurance defying fatigue toxins, adaptability rewriting doctrines. In the quiet aftermath, as council dispersed, Belisara lingered with Hail and Lyrath. Her claw brushed his arm, a crack in propriety, personal warmth seeping through. You saw paths we missed, she admitted, multifaceted eyes softening. Equality, not concession. He smiled faintly, pattern of galaxies in his gaze. We learned together, your fleets. Unmatched elegance. She felt the truth settle. Born to rule alone, yet true power bloomed in alliance. Fractures mended, the empire remade, not by dominance, but by this human's quiet extraordinary. Deeper tides now converged, promising eras of collaborative might.